Welcome to RSAC Conference 2025. We're here recording from the CyberRisk TV studio at the Marriott Marquis in San Francisco. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me for this interview is Chuck Randolph, Senior Vice President, Strategic Intelligence and Security at 360 Privacy.
It's a mouthful, my friend. Well done.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here and honored to be nominated.
Yeah, congratulations. You were nominated as a Best Managed Security Service finalist
Yep.
in the 2025
Yeah.
BT Awards.
It's exciting. It was a great event last night, and so many amazing people, amazing leaders, amazing tech. So it's just an honor to be part of the finalists of the entire thing.
Yeah, and this is a super interesting space. I've not really had to deal with this I've had many roles in
Thankfully.
security. But I have many friends who are CISOs who do have to deal with executive protection. And I think it's fascinating that I'm not sure when we realize that point that, like we have to worry about what's on the home network. We have to worry about the rest of the family, that, this line between personal and professional accounts, data, everything is just completely blurred these days.
You're absolutely right. I'm an old, as well as being in security industry for a very long time. And I ran executive protection at a large Fortune 25 for about 17 years. And I spent a little time on the cyber side as well. I also have a background in information operations in the U.S. Army. And in IO, we used to say, look, we are focused on that 3G environment, guns, gates, guards, which is very analog EP bodyguard kind of thing. And now we have that 4G environment, guns, gates, guards, gigabytes. And all domains must be thought of when we're thinking about protecting high net worth families or executives, because, and you probably know this better than I do, I think about it this way: we're all telemetry producers. And I'm kind of purposely using that word, and we're leaving and throwing out information, sometimes on purpose, sometimes inadvertently. And that all leads, all those breadcrumbs lead to something, or can help us target or help us identify or do something. So it's only natural in my mind that the CISO now is involved in that conversation. Like, great, we're protecting this individual physically, but what are we doing in the digital space? Right up to who's managing the Bluetooth camera or who's managing the Bluetooth monitor behind her when she's giving a speech. I mean, it truly is an all hazards look now.
Yeah. And it's it's interesting. It's we've seen a lot of cases where, in hindsight, there were signs, there were messages,
Always.
and just knowing that we can look for that kind of thing. We have seen some organizations put together these machines that consume all this data. And I've done OSINT work as part of pen test red teams that I've done. And it is a lot of sifting through data.
And you're right. I mean, look, just in our time, let's just say in the last 10 years, the advancements, and I know there's something, and I'm going to butcher this, Kurzweil's law, where, the advancement itself is rapidly increasing, which just means we as protectors, as risk mitigators, have to stay in front of it as well, because, like you're saying, OSINT itself has advanced rapidly over the last just 6 years. And then we as protectors, again, we have to obsess on how are we advancing with that, because anything we can do for good immediately is repurposed for nefarious reasons.
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah, and AI makes managing and consuming this information a lot easier at scale.
And quantum as it comes up. I mean, it's frightening, but also hopeful for new technology.
Yeah, we'll see on quantum. I've dug pretty deep into quantum, and right now what they're doing with it is not too impressive. So the possibilities are, can be kind of scary, but then you look at what they've got so far, and it's pretty modest at this point. So we'll see what happens.
And I'm wondering for this space in particular, as we think about digital executive protection and PII, personally identifiable information takedown, and things like just the speed that maybe something like quantum might bring to the space in terms of like, oh, I want to know a lot about Chuck Randolph. I'm going to go after it now. And this is just going to help me process that more rapidly so I can make him time, place predictable. Maybe I'm going to target him so that I could phish him or pretext him or something. And then I think, again, as protectors, we just have to continue to be obsessed of finding, rooting out that information, identifying it, managing it, mitigating it, or obfuscating it. I know I sound like an old IO
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
again. Detect, deter, deny, disrupt, defend.
Yeah, and I think, well, I'm curious to get your input. Do you feel like a lot of people are still kind of naive in terms of what's out there, or, I know,
That's a good point.
it's changed a lot
Yeah.
from generation to
So
generation, I think.
let me ask you a question. I
Yeah.
mean, clearly you talk to a lot of folks. You have an interesting eyeball on both the threat landscape and the landscape of the industry. And in my mind, sometimes I think we went to a point, I don't know if this is a post-COVID conversation or just going all the way back to AOL, where I need to let you know where I am and what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And now are we seeing the pendulum swing the other way to where, like, maybe not so much. And now I'm trying to go back and we're really understanding that we've left a lot of breadcrumbs out. Some of them, again, we need to. Maybe you and I are e-gamers. It's important. People see us, come watch us play, whatever it might be online. But also, hey, you and I are high net worth individuals. Perhaps we're baseball athletes. We post where we are, and people are trying to break into our house because they know we're gone. I
Mhm.
mean, I think we're coming to grips on the amount of information that really is out there. And who was it that said information is the new oil? And those catchphrases suddenly, I think, take on a different meaning when, oh, there's a danger to this as well.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. There's this new trend called VTubers,
Mhm.
where they actually use a digital avatar, and
Right.
you don't know who they are. You never see their face, but they are in front of a camera with their
Right.
face in front of a camera. But then digitally, that's replaced by some kind of
Yeah.
caricature.
Well, and the whole space is fascinating. I mean, you and I were kind of talking before we turned the mics on of, like, you got to think of there's this idea of, like, threat informed, intelligence driven, operations led. And in this threat informed, let's consider that that's like our garden.
Yeah.
And in that garden, we have information. Some of it's flowers, we like it. Some of it's weeds, we don't like it. So we pull out the weeds, we walk away. Great. Everything looks great. We come back to the garden again in a month, and there's weeds everywhere. They've overtaken. And I think what we're seeing now with things like the VTubers and things is, again, an understanding of really what's being put out there and how we're managing our garden space. And let's not create more weeds by putting more putting more information out there. Now, mis and disinformation in the battle for the narrative and how that affects executives and that's a whole nother conversation, but I think that's also coming.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are definitely some communities out there where you'll see somebody be in the news for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's a mass shooting, whatever. And on Reddit, somehow in 32.6 seconds, somebody is
Yes.
you could just completely dox the person. Like, we
Well,
don't even know if that's the right person yet. The information's too new. But people on the internet are so quick to just and there are people very good, just random people out there,
absolutely.
very good at finding this information, putting it all together.
It's,
Mhm.
I think from a point of view, let's go back to the protector and let's talk about, like, enterprise level physical protection. And I think protection now it's an all source, all hazards. But let's take, Brian Thompson was murdered
Mhm.
in December of last year. That sent a shockwave through the industry, of which many, I'm assuming, CSOs and CISOs both were asked
Oh, yeah.
by the board, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So now this idea of protection is at a board level.
Yeah.
What did we see after the shooting and murder of Brian Thompson? Is we saw extremists, far right, far left, having conversations about this. Soon after, in Chicago, you saw things being painted on the side of the walls, murder your CEO.
Mhm.
We saw those playing cards come out. Speaking of doxing, I can't remember which business, but somebody was doxed, and then online, his information was put out, and they said, if you're looking for the next person, here you go.
Oh,
And
wow.
there's a
Yeah.
growing, like, and it's not going away because it's obfuscated by whatever the current news is. I mean, there's a growing and a continued movement
Mhm.
that I think is troubling in this space. And again, we look at something like digital executive protection, things that 360 Privacy does. You're the CISO, I'm the CISO. This is a place we can truly have a converged conversation. How are we sharing resources? How are we protecting our most valuable assets that are an extension of brand, extension of business continuity? And then what are we doing to make sure they, and as ancillary, their staff or family, also aren't tossing out information that
Yeah.
can make them traceable?
Yeah, and you know, obviously the murder of an executive is a pretty extreme level, but there's also just a lot of nuanced, smaller
Oh my
things there,
gosh, yeah.
like a lot of stuff that goes on that isn't talked about as much. You know, like you know, because of where somebody's an executive, their kids get bullied at school.
Yeah.
You know, there's threats against the rest of the family. You know, again, like it's incredibly easy. For a lot of people out there, you know, lots of guides on OSINT, a lot of tools
Yep.
to help people do this, and can be used in for good and bad.
Well, you said it. I mean, there are people that are very good at OSINT. And you're right. On Reddit, something's happening. Boom, you can go there and there's a thread popped up.
Yeah,
And you can, I mean, I've gone there many times when a crisis is hitting just to say what's being said on the open net about crisis X. And the assumption can't always be that everybody's bad. It can't always be that everybody's good either. So you have to find that balance as well. And like assumption of risk that bad things are going to be happening with anything that pops up there.
yeah. And personally, having been a pain in the butt as a child and being a father, you know, teenagers are very good at evading
Oh,
defenses
oh
and
my Lord.
protections that are maybe put there for their own good, right?
And helping them understand too. I think it's a great point because often like, look, I'm a 15-year-old. I want you to know, I was going to say
Yeah,
Spain, but they're having some issues, right? I want you to know I'm in London right now with my dad. Maybe we don't want people to know that right now.
yeah,
Maybe we don't want people to know, what's out there about you. Maybe we,
yeah,
we just don't want them to know. So part of, I think, digital EP, especially from a supplier point of view, is there's the one and done, hey, like we said, I went in, I weeded your garden, good to go. Here's your bill. But I think there's another level of that too, that also includes some white gloving, if you will, and training of like, hey,
yeah.
let's talk to you, let's talk to your staff, let's talk to the kids, and help them understand like, we get it. There's a balance of being out there, but there's a way to do that without without highlighting yourself or
Mhm.
silhouetting yourself. I think it's a better way.
And speaking of white glove, I want to talk a bit about what you do,
Yeah.
what products you have, how much of that you would do versus how much somebody purchasing your services would do in terms of the white glove portion of it. So, yeah,
Sure. We have,
if you would just
yeah.
walk
So
me through the products.
360 privacy, essentially we have two offerings. One is we'll come in, we'll search through databases, hundreds of data broker sites, all the things to continue to weed the garden, take the information down about you. And then our second tier is that plus deep and dark web searching and that white glove, whether it's, hey, let's come in and talk to you. Let's help you out with a certain problem. I think that's the thing that's going to separate a lot of folks in this space, probably in a lot of supplier spaces, is that human touch that's in there as well.
Yeah.
I'll say
So
human.
I'm not having to weed out all the false positives.
No,
So I imagine there has to be some conversation there for me to understand contextually
exactly.
enough to be able to tell what is a false
There's
positive or not.
there's always that beginning where, we started as B2C, we moved B2B, and now we're in both spaces. And there's that discussion, whether it's with the CISO, CSO, or a high net worth individual of like, okay, let's walk through what you have. Here's some information to start. And then we come back with a report saying, here's what we found. Here's what we're looking at. Here's what we're going to continue to look at. You also get a report that says, here's what we continue to find, what we continue to see. Of course, you can ask. You'll inevitably have questions about
Mhm.
that. Many in your space or many in like high net worth, of course, they have questions, and we continue to look at that. And then on the white glove, that service part, like sitting down with you, helping you understand the data, helping you understand how should we look at this, how should we be forward leaning and thinking about the information as opposed to just responding to it, so we can help reduce that silhouette.
Gotcha. Yeah, and as you were saying, this is not something you know. I'm sure initially you do a first assessment, you know, and there's
Yeah,
probably
always,
a lot of cleanup work to do there. You know, a lot of
always.
things to earmark. But from then on, it's not a one and done, right? Yeah, as you were saying
Yeah.
with the garden
And
metaphor
And I
before.
think that's the thing that I really like about our company is majority of the folks came from an operations point of, operator
Mhm.
side, whether that's on the keyboard operations side or as myself,
Physical.
be physical protection front right, if you want to use the cool vernacular, or many came from, the military working at that side. So they really understand like on the other end of the spectrum, this is what happens if we don't get it right.
Mhm.
So we kind of obsess with that human in the loop again, and that closed loop to say, we're going to continue to look at this. We have somebody that's always going to kind of obsess to make sure, are we pulling your information down? And then of course, if we see something that we think is abnormal or of issue, reaching out and contacting you saying, let's have a conversation about this.
Well, Chuck, thank you so much for joining me
thanks
today.
for having me.
Fascinating conversation. Not a conversation I often have these days. So,
well, we're here for you, my friend.
Yeah, lot of fun to dive into it and know that there are offerings out there, there are services out there for this kind of thing.
Thank you, cool. And congrats to all the finalists and the winners.
Yeah, and congrats again to you and to 360 Privacy for being nominated as a Best Managed Security Service finalist in the 2025 SC Awards.